Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lounging with Lo, the podcast where we talk about my favorite movies and television shows. I'm so happy that you guys are able to join me today. We're going to do something a little bit different today in this podcast. We are going to talk about movie franchises. No, we're not going to talk about Marvel. We're not going to talk about DC or Batman or Matrix, Lord of the Rings, not even Disney, but I promise you, we're going to talk about those franchises later on in the podcast series. We are going to talk about one of my favorite movie franchises in the entire movie industry, in my opinion. We are going to talk about James Bond, 007 License to Kill. James Bond is a spy thriller that is well known in all ages of all moviegoers. It started in the 1960s and it has moved all its way up to 2021. It's an amazing franchise. I hope that you guys enjoy it as much as I have. So we're going to talk about a little bit about how it came to be, who the actors are, a little bit about the overview of the Bond girls and their allies, and other things like that. But what I'm going to play for you guys right now is the famous tagline from Daniel Craig's Casino Royale towards the very end when he is introducing himself to the villain. And it's amazing what he does it. So here it is. Daniel Craig, take us away.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
If you guys have never seen any of the James Bond movies, oh my goodness, you're missing out on a lot. But you know what? I understand. Not a lot of people are big James Bond fans. Well, I'm hoping this information that I give you will change your mind and you will become Bond fans overnight. As always, you guys can always find me on Facebook or on many streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, iHeartRadio, all that fun stuff. You can also find me on my Facebook page to go to the link for the streaming services there. And it's going to be a great amount of fun. I post things as much as I can so that you guys get new updates about new episodes come in and what we're going to be talking about, so you can kind of get a big idea of what's going on here. So we are going to talk about the history behind James Bond. Who is he and where did he come from? Well, we have to thank Mr. Ian Fleming for bringing James Bond into our lives and on the silver screen as well. So, Mr. Ian Fleming based James Bond on himself because during his life of many jobs that he had, plus of all the places that he traveled, he had great experience. So, when he was writing Casino Royale in 1953, that is when James Bond was born. And it became very, very popular to the point where two producers by the name of Harry Saltzman and Albert Broccoli came to him and say, we want to make James Bond into a movie, and we would like to have your permission to do so. Well, as all authors do, unfortunately, you're very skeptical at first because you don't know how it's going to play out, and it's going to mislead you, and it's going to be true to the book, things like that. So, Ian decided to go ahead and let them take the franchise and put it to a whole new level with Dr. No in 1962, and it became a household name. James Bond, 007, and Ian Fleming's books just soared with book sales because of that film. Unfortunately, due to some health issues that Ian Fleming had, he didn't get a chance to see the second film being released. He did see it in production in 1964, I believe it was, and he passed away at the age of 56. Sir Ian Fleming, we thank you very much for bringing the Bond franchise to life and giving us much fun and enjoyment with your books and also with these films based on your books. Alright, so as every movie producer or even director has the story, has the characters, now the main question is, who is going to play the James Bond character? Well, we have 6 actors to thank for this as well. the late Sean Connery, who first introduced us to the James Bond character in 1962 with Dr. No. He brought the suave, sophisticated side of James Bond. He actually ended the James Bond career in 1967. He went on a hiatus for a little while, came back in 1971 with Diamonds Are Forever, again went on another hiatus for a few more years, and then came back with 1983, Never Say Never Again, which actually, bit of trivia for you guys, Never Say Never Again is not part of the franchise. If you watch a documentary called Everything or Nothing, you can find it on Amazon. That's where I found the documentary. It talks more about why Never Say Never Again is actually not part of the official James Bond lineup. So during Sean Connery's hiatus, of course, in 1969, we had the actor George Lazenby come in. He brought the more sensitive side of James Bond that we normally never see in his movie On Your Majesty's Secret Service. And then in 1973, after Diamonds Are Forever was released, the late Sir Roger Moore came into play with Live and Let Die. And then he went on to do the James Bond role until 1985 with A View to a Kill, with Christopher Walken playing Max Zorn as the villain. And then after Sir Roger Moore finished that up, again, we went on another hiatus to find out who the next Bond film was going to be about and who was going to play that role. Another piece of trivia for you guys. In the documentary Everything or Nothing, when they interviewed Pierce Brosnan, when they were talking about The Living Daylights, which was debuted in 1989, I believe it was. I'm sorry, 1987. I'm sorry. Pierce Brosnan was approached for the role because he saw the production of For Your Eyes Only with Roger Moore, and he was just very intrigued with the storyline and the character. But unfortunately, due to his ties with the Remington Steele contract, he could not play that role. So that's where Timothy Dalton came into play to debut his role for James Bond. And then he ended his James Bond career with License to Kill in 1989. So then again, after the hiatus again, they approached Pierce again, and he was able to debut his role of James Bond in 1995's GoldenEye, and then he fulfilled the role towards the end in 2002 with Die Another Day. Now, Pierce Brosnan actually is where I started watching the Bond series. It was The World Is Not Enough. That movie was really good. Denise Richards played one of the Bond girls, Dr. Christmas Jones. That's really iconic as well. And that's where my James Bond bug was bitten for me. And then obviously after 2002, they had another hiatus again to figure out who was going to be the next Bond actor, and they came up with Daniel Craig. He started with Casino Royale, which was Ian Fleming's very first book, and then he went on to play James Bond in 2021 with No Time to Die, which is his very last film for the Bond role. So, now that you've got the Bond character, so now you have all the love interests, or what we call Bond girls. There's another documentary that I'd like you guys to watch as well. It's called Bond Girls Are Forever. And this talks about all the Bond girls that were part of the franchise, and I love this documentary as well. I'm not a big documentary fan. But this one really caught my interest because I love James Bond. So one of the Bond girls, Marion Diabo, she was a Bond girl in The Living Daylights with Timothy Dalton. She goes around and finds all the Bond girls from the Sean Connery era to Roger Moore to I think George Lazenby, and then Pierce Brosnan. That's where it stops, because that's how far it went there. I think they were still in the production of Die Another Day when this came into be. But she gets to know them a little bit more and talks about their roles in those movies as well. We have the wonderful Dame Judi Dench, who played M from GoldenEye all the way up to Skyfall. She played the female M. There was a male M that started out in Dr. No all the way up to License to Kill with Timothy Dalton. Then the male role came back from Skyfall towards the end all the way up to No Time to Die. And then we also have Moneypenny, who is M's secretary, who kind of flirts with James Bond a little bit. Lois Maxwell introduced the character, and then we have Samantha Bond and Naomi Harris. We have Q, the wonderful late Desmond Llewellyn. He started out in the Sean Connery era and then ended in the Pierce Brosnan The World Is Not Enough. Unfortunately, he passed away during the production of that. John Cleese filled in the role in Die Another Day, and then we also have the younger Q starting from Skyfall, I believe, all the way up to No Time to Die as well. We want to talk about the music, guys. I wish I had more time to talk about music, but unfortunately I don't. But music in films and obviously TV shows as well, they play an integral part because it helps set the scene or set the tone of what the movie's going to be about or what's happening in that particular scene as well. John Barry, who was the original composer who introduced us to the iconic James Bond theme song with the electric guitar and most of the brass in there as well in that era. We also have a lot of well-known names like Shirley Bassey, Paul McCartney and the Wings, Adele, who won the Academy Award for Best Original Song, Sam Smith, and Billie Eilish was in there as well for their iconic theme songs that made their hits for them as well for the charts. We also had some other different composers come in for the modern age, but they still wanted to keep the traditional John Barry score during the scenes as well. Guys, I wish I had a lot more time, but if you want to know more about James Bond, you want me to do some more episodes, particularly on the actors, the Bond girls, the gadgets, the technology, and more about the music, let me know. And I would love to do those with you guys. You can email me, and again, it's on my Facebook page, Lounging with Lo. My email is loungingwithlo@gmail.com, and it's all one word, no spaces. You can also Facebook message me as well. And if you guys want to tell me who your favorite Bond actor and movie is, I'd be happy to share them on my podcast with you guys as well. Because I'm sure who all my Bond fans out there are big, big debates on who is the best Bond. You know, some say the late Sean Connery is, some say the late Roger Moore, some say Pierce, some say Daniel, some say George, some say Timothy. I'd like to know from you guys. So, I want to thank you guys very much for joining me today. I hope that this information will make you guys big Bond fans and maybe want to go watch the series. Most of the movies are on Amazon. If you're just starting out on the Bonds, I would recommend watching Dr. No, which was again in 1962, and then all the way up to Daniel Craig, No Time to Die, because it shows how much technology and the gadgets and the society has changed from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s as well. Especially that's the main part, especially the Bond girls, of how they evolved. And again, the technology and the gadgets, as well as the cars. So guys, we're going to end this podcast with a little bit special here. I have the tail end of the James Bond song I'm going to end this podcast with. So guys, again, I want to thank you so much for joining me. And as always, let's lounge together.